Meat used to be eaten raw. Why did we start cooking it?
The importance of meat is, of fire rather, of cooking meat, has been attributed to the evolutionary success. That basically, the more efficiently that we eat food, that we digest food, and the richer the food is that we eat, basically allows us to reduce the size of our guts. And so the energy that humans would otherwise use to digest can then be put to uses such as our brain. And so then the archaeologists, paleontologists now think that it was that shift from digesting to brain activity that makes it possible for us to develop to evolve the brains that we have.
Digesting food takes that much energy?
Well, compare a cow with four stomachs to a human with a very small one. And in fact, we can trace the human evolution by reductions in the size of our chest, right, of our stomach, and that earlier versions, Homo erectus, had a much bigger rib cage to hold the digestive organs, right? And humans have the smallest guts of any other animal. Compare it, and just using sort of the size of the guts to the weight, overall weight. And we have the largest brains. And that trade-off is absolutely 1-to-1.
But Jeffrey, isn't all of this in hindsight? Like, did they know at the time that cooking food would make their stomach smaller?
Oh no, and this is an evolutionary change that takes, hundreds of thousands, millions of years, right? Nobody notices, oh, he's got a slim belly, he's going to be evolutionary successful. No, there's absolutely not that. But, when you're looking at time frames on this sort of million-year span, we can put a skeleton of Australopithecines next to a Homo erectus, next to a Neanderthal, next to a modern human, and see this evolution happening. So it's absolutely, sort of viewed in retrospect.
Why did we start cooking in the first place? Was it an accident?
I think that probably that early use of fire was we discover, fires, and fires happen all the time. Lightning strikes or other kinds of things start a fire. And it's overcoming that initial fear, right? Because all animals shy away from fires, right? It's dangerous. A forest fire can destroy an entire ecosystem. And so what was it that allowed us to overcome that fear, and then eventually to turn fire into a tool, and eventually to start our own fires, right? Not to be dependent on a fire that may go out.
But
But
wouldn't we have used the fire for warmth or something? How did we get to cooking? Did someone drop meat on it by accident?
Sure. Absolutely.
Could have
I
happened.
mean, you put a meat, and this is the way lots of people cook, right? Is over a heated stone, or you've got a fire there, and you put either meat or various kinds of tubers, other plant or underground storage organs, plants. And it transforms it by just being left in the fire. And so if humans are using fire for warmth or for protection from animals, right? That notion that other people are afraid of fires and we can use that for our own defense. All of these things are very powerful. And if you would just think about, I mean, my own life growing up, I mean, sitting in front of a fire was a very satisfying event. I mean, I just, and surely that goes very deep into human sort of history.
Did we hunt?
uh, Basically the remains of an animal, sort of scavenging kills done by other predators. The skills of humans as hunters and their ability to eat meat certainly increases about 2 million years ago with the development of these polished stone knives. I mean, you don't get spears until maybe 800,000 years ago. But it's also important to remember that a lot of what they were using these polished stone tools for was as much digging up roots and other kinds of foods as it was for killing animals. And so the image we have of the hunter-gatherer, sort of bringing down the mastodon and carrying it off. Well, as one archaeologist joke, they probably killed one and never stopped talking about it.
So it was more brains over brawn.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So one of the theories of why humans developed their brain is that cooperative hunting was necessary to use the symbolic language that we now communicate with.
You
And
mean in a group, like hunting in a group?
yeah, hunting in a group. So hunting is as a group, you'd have
Yeah.
people, bands that would work together.
Well, why do we use those terms and not like hunting in a pack, for example? We use that with
That's an
animals,
interesting
right?
question. And I mean, the language that we use the language of packs for animals, and we use bands for humans. And
Why?
well, because we're humans ourselves, and we want to differentiate ourselves from the lower animals. Now, in fact, dogs and their ancestors, certainly from the earliest domestication 15,000 years ago, were accompanying humans on these hunts. But it's like the difference between a barbarian and a civilized person, right? We are the civilized people, and anybody who doesn't behave like us is the barbarian. And that's just the language that humans use for differentiating ourselves. Uh,
Why isn't there this image in the public of humans as scavengers?
in the 1950s and 60s, there was a theory of human evolution, and it was called man the hunter. And it attributed our sort of brains, our skills, our evolutionary success to the fact that these men were going out and hunting. So there's a couple of things that are involved in that. First of all, is the notion that somehow we were the hyenas of the animal world, right? Picking off of the meat that was left behind by others is just not a very appealing thing for us as we imagine ourselves in this development.
Was early cooking technology any good?
I mean, by early technology, it could be quite advanced. I mean, we now have fossil records of breweries among Paleolithic people, foragers 13,000 years ago making beer, baking bread. And so, and it's really just a question of digging ever deeper into the record and seeing what we find, and that these early humans were just remarkably ingenious people at feeding themselves a wide variety of foods for a very long time.
We were actually that smart?
We were pretty smart. And I mean, the thing is that,
But I mean, Jeff, couldn't you say like nowadays everything's been invented, really? Or don't they say we're in the age of refinement, not invention? Back then, anything you would have picked at, oh, I want something to eat with. Oh, spoon, there you go. That's an invention. I want this and a fork and a thing.
well, one thing you have to keep in mind is that intelligence, right, has to be separated from sort of culture. And by what I mean by that is culture is the accumulation of the tools that we have, and it's really the being able to use tools that gives us a sort of a success that we don't have to relearn everything from scratch, and it lets us accumulate this knowledge, this useful things over generations and over thousands of years. And so these early people were not any less smart than we are, from that basic sense. What they didn't have was our wealth of accumulated knowledge, right? They were actually the ones who were pioneering it, who were developing it in the first place.
How come humans are so far ahead of other animals? There isn't a single species that's causing us to look over our shoulders.
Um, that's an interesting question. And well, I guess actually there were 200,000 years ago, lots of different species, right? There was Neanderthal, there was Denisovans, there were a lot of different ones. And one of these earlies, Homo sapien, outcompeted all the rest. And basically, we killed off all of our competitors. And the animals that we couldn't domesticate to our own uses, to feed us, cattle and sheep and pigs and chickens. I mean, the others we killed off too. And I mean, we're now in the process of kind of finishing that off as wild spaces around the world are being either turned into zoos or being paved over to turn into mega cities. And so it's, I guess Darwin would say, it's just that we outcompeted everybody else.
That much though? I mean, I've seen pictures of chimps trying to use tools to fish, like spears, and people freak out. Like, isn't it crazy that chimps are trying to hunt like us? Yeah, but they're so far behind though. I mean, isn't that crazy?
Well, I think it is the brain capacity, the complexity of our language, and really one of the things that made Homo sapiens different from all the others was an awareness of our environment and an ability to shape it to our needs. Right? And so we can think of all the ways that using fire, for example, to groom a landscape to suit our needs. That this was something that was being done certainly 50,000 years ago, um, and that we changed the playing board to make it into our space, and anybody who stood in our way we killed off.